I think we did.
So someone in the team was like, let's have custom jackets.
Pretty much, yeah, because we made them for the team, and then yeah, we made them for the team at our booth at, I guess it was Denver. I know we should honestly sell them by how much like comments we get on it. We probably make good money. Where's Mooly? Can you go get my guys? Just grab them before everybody leaves. Oh, we'll get some good V4 clips, and we'll get to show the Babylon integration. But yeah, congrats, man. Man, I'm just glad it's out. To be honest, so we've been kind of like promoting it for about a year, but it's been in R&D. Wow. Yeah, it's been like a long process. All right, we all settled in. Can I get my guys up here? My whole panel up here, please. Oh yeah, clap for us. Clap for us. Sit wherever, guys. Just grab it. Okay, so we will be talking about Aave v4 and the end of fragmented liquidity. Aave v4 just went live on Ethereum mainnet.
Oh, let's go.
Not all that long ago. So.
Oh.
So to kick this off, I mean, Emilio's been with Aave since the Eathlin days, and he's been working on V4 for a long time. So maybe start us off, Emilio. What's it like after 2.5 years to finally get V4 live?
For me, it's the fourth, actually more than fourth, because I was before. Like we were releasing Eatland already back in the day. So release day is always exciting day in the sense that you have that feeling that, oh my God, it's finally over, but in reality it's just starting. Because there is still so much work that we have to do, and like it's completely new technology. We redesigned the whole thing from scratch. And because of that, like we are taking a very, very cautious approach in how V4 is gonna evolve. So I don't expect any exploit in the sense of growth, not exploit in the sense of security. In the next months, but it's going to be very gradual, but also very consistent, I think. And it's definitely our foundational layer of technology for everything that we want to build in the next years to come. Yeah.
Awesome. And before we go into the rest of it, do you mind giving an intro to yourselves? We can start with you, Mooly, and we'll go down the line.
Yes, so I'm Mooly Sagiv. I'm academic in computer science, informal verification, and also chief scientist and co-founder of Certora.
My name is Simon, also known as Val, but now I'm going under my real name since we're dealing with TradFi. I'm CEO at LlamaRisk. At LlamaRisk, we are a risk service provider serving the Aave ecosystem since the last 2 years now. And our one and only mission is to make Aave as resilient and, I would say, anti-fragile as possible through stressed impact, basically. We're doing that through due diligence, setting parameters, doing quantitative and qualitative research for Aave. And more recently, we started working on Aave Horizon, also bootstrapping the market from a risk perspective. And we're beyond excited to see V4 launch today.
Hello everyone, my name is Fisher. I'm the co-founder of a project called Babylon. Yeah, so you might not know me because we are a Bitcoin project. This is our first time entering Ethereum. Yeah, so our project is known for making Bitcoin productive in a trustless way. Yeah, our most famous achievement is activated over $10 billion worth of Bitcoin through our trustless Bitcoin staking protocol. So this year, we invented a new protocol called Trustless Bitcoin Collateral Vault, which allows native Bitcoin to be collateralized and directly used in DeFi. And the most natural use case of Bitcoin collateral is borrowing. So Aave v4 actually allows our Bitcoin users to collateralize their Bitcoin and borrow anything from Aave. So we are super excited about the launch of Aave v4.
Yeah, and we're glad to have you. And I mean, going back to the launch, Mooly, you guys were involved in the development process as well for a long time now. So I guess, can you give a little bit of insight into what the kind of security first approach behind V4 was like? Like, how are you guys involved? What does that mean for Aave V4 security, and how is it unique kind of relative to some of the other protocols maybe you worked on in the past?
Yes, of course. So first I have to say, I think we have been working with Aave not from the beginning, but almost from the beginning. We started a little bit after V1, right? And we work on V2 and V3, but I think V4 is a very, very different case, and we have a lot of people in our team. Maybe some of here, I don't know, Tomer is scared.
Didn't want to hang out.
I think he's still brainstorming outside.
Okay, so I think
The rest.
we have a huge part of our team that plays important role, and actually even before actually we started, Aave V4 was designed for security, and we tried to influence, we forced ourselves into London somehow, so we came not early enough, but I guess
Oh, no, it was early enough.
early enough to change things, and our idea is that we thought if we are coming from formal verification, so we thought if it's easier for formal verification, it must be easier for everybody. And that's what we tried. We tried to make it easier for auditing and easier for formal verification. We did some things. I think we feel very confident about V4. We think it's really very, very secure. It's very modular. Of course, there's a tech surface because there are spokes, there are things that can change, but we think it's pretty secure. And for us, we have been working on many, many DeFi protocols. In particular, I think we played a key role in V3. V3 was very interesting, but I should say it was very hard for us. And it was very hard for formal verification. There were a bit hard things. And V4 is a big step forward from our side. And we think if it's easier for formal verification, it must be easier for others, and it must be more secure. We feel very good about the security and also modularity, and we think security and modularity goes a long way together.
Awesome. And Simon, like you mentioned, you guys have been doing risk analysis for the Aave DAO for a long time now. I mean, how are you guys already starting to kind of change the way you think about risk under like a V4 regime? Like, what does that kind of look like in your eyes? And what do you see some of the interesting challenges being as V4 scales up?
So for us, it's pretty much a continuation, and there's a lot of heuristics that we're using under V3 that are still applicable under V4. Although for V4, it's really an architectural shift in terms of modularity and in terms of how much control surface we have on the risk parameters. So there's a lot of granular changes that we can accomplish to make it at the same time safer, but also more efficient. I'd like maybe to geek out and go into a bit of a technical detail about liquidations, how liquidations are handled on V3 versus V4. And that example will kind of illustrate like all these incremental features that we're able to play with now under V4. So under V3, the liquidations, you could either liquidate 50% of a position or the whole position altogether. Now, under V4, we're able to be much more granular and per asset set up. Rather than a step function, you're able to set up initial close factor, but also you have a dynamic liquidation bonus. And what that means for the end user is that you will only be liquidated for what's needed to bring you back into a healthy position. So it's a much more pleasant UX experience. But also it's very safe because on our end, we can really tune it per, let's say, volatile asset versus correlated asset. So there's a lot of these nice features that we've been playing with and studying and getting ready to make the most of now that V4 is launched.
Yeah, and Fisher, coming to you, I mean, you know, even though V4 just launched, we've also been working with you guys for a while now, kind of preparing for the launch, and we'll have something to announce, like, hopefully live with you guys relatively soon. I mean, can you kind of give us some insights into why V4 was interesting to you guys? I mean, you mentioned that, you know, you're kind of new to Ethereum in general, I guess, being a Bitcoin company. What is interesting about V4, and why was it worth making a bet on from your perspective?
Yeah. Sure. So there are multiple aspects. One is the safety and risk, and second is the modular design of V4. So from the safety perspective, okay, Bitcoin holders care about safety a lot. Okay, so what Babylon trustless BTC collateral vote protocol enables is allow Ethereum smart contracts to control the disposition of the Bitcoin collateral. So Bitcoin holders have to trust the smart contract. So the risk management and like the audit to the death, the spirit of Aave, it's very important for Bitcoin holders. So working with Aave will make it much easier for Bitcoin holder to say, okay, I trust that smart contract. So this is from the risk perspective. And then from the design perspective, Bitcoin is very different from Ethereum in a sense that it is UTXO based. Yeah, you can't deposit one BTC and get like half BTC liquidated. It has to be one BTC in, one BTC out. So that means when you design a landing for Bitcoin, there's some tweaks you need to make to allow it to work with the Ethereum smart contracts. So Aave's modular design, the spoke and harp design, allow us to do some small customization so that the Bitcoin UTXO mode can work very well with the Ethereum type of liquidation and settlement. Yeah, so that's why we love Aave before.
Nice. And Emilio, Bitcoin is particularly this type of design around Bitcoin is like an interesting use case. But what are some of the other like interesting use cases that V4 opens up that maybe weren't possible on Aave previously, or maybe would have been more difficult to do on Aave previously?
I mean, the current V3 iteration of the protocol, to reconnect quickly to what Mooly said before, so one of the reasons why we decided to re-implement the whole thing from scratch and not just extend or adding a subset of the existing features of V3 of V4 to V3, because like of course V3 being upgradable, you can take a subset of the features that are in V4. You could theoretically port them to V3, even though that would bring an amount of rework that maybe makes it not suitable or not convenient from a risk perspective to do so. But a lot of the things that the new architecture allows are not actually possible on V3. And one of the reasons is that the modularity and the way that we built the protocol allows us to transform like V3 from like a pure lending protocol where every position is backed by ERC20 collateral to a more liquidity provisioning protocol where you have a liquidity layer and then you can build strategies for borrowing on top, like the Babylon strategy, for example, that doesn't necessarily use ERC20 as collateral to borrow and plug in a liquidity layer that is already existing, which means that also you don't have the problem that you have to bootstrap new markets like we had in V3, which is one of the reasons why like this panel is called the end of fragmented liquidity, right? Because the design that we have allows us to manage liquidity in a much more efficient way. And also, to reconnect what Mooly was saying before, it allowed us to redesign the protocol in a way that is much more friendly towards security. Because like the code base is like less than half the size of V3, even though there are more features in it. And the design allowed a formal verification from the beginning. This is not to diminish like the importance or the technical relevancy of V3, because V3 is a great product, it's amazing, works well, it has a large liquidity, it's very strong, very safe, it's been in production for a long time, but V3 is a byproduct of a design that we started in 2019, which was Aave v1, then they slightly evolved in Aave v2, and then a bit more prominently evolved in Aave v3 and all subsequent iterations. But when we started developing Aave v1, we didn't have all the tools that we have today. Like with the formal verification didn't even exist. So the network was much more constrained from a technical perspective. So what we managed to do today with the redesign, by the way, my team is here. Can I have a round of applause for these guys, please? And Tomer also. Yes, Tomer from Certora. And they work really hard, so deserve it, this and more. Yeah, I mean, the exciting part is actually yet to come. Actually, if you want to know more, I'm not gonna spoil now because tomorrow I have a talk on the main stage. So if you want to learn more about future use cases, tomorrow there is mine.
I think also the idea is that it's, if I may add, that it's upgradable. So you can write your own hubs, right?
Exactly. So the idea is that, like one thing that made me really happy in this during this event specifically is that multiple teams and people came to me with new ideas to build stuff on top of V4, which was not happening. It didn't happen for a long time because like V3 being a very stable and very well-known architecture, basically pretty much everything that you could build on top of V3 was built. And now we kind of reopen the design space. So there is a lot of possibility, not only in terms of new borrowing strategies, but also in terms of automating, for example, all the new risk levers that we have, or implementing new reinvestment features. Like this is another feature that we have in V4 that we would love to have in V3 as well, but we don't, unfortunately. And yeah, I mean, V4 as it is today is somehow similar to V3 in terms of configuration, even though it offers more features and better UX and so on and so forth. But what I'm really excited about is what V4 is going to be in the next couple of years, with a lot of new strategies like the Babylon one and like equivalent ones that we will be developing over the next couple of years.
And Simon, you mentioned earlier the liquidation engine as being like a thing you guys are excited to fine tune. That might be a little too nerdy for this particular conversation.
Sorry about
but
that then.
what about like other things that you guys have been looking into, like the reinvestment controller? What kind of strategies that are now possible under V4 are kind of exciting from your POV?
So it's very difficult to choose like specific features, because I have to thank Emilio, because for a risk manager, this is really like a treasure trove in terms of like what's possible now. When we're thinking about being able to have a native reinvestment controller on Aave V4, last year, idle liquidity on the supply side for lending protocol is a big problem we're trying to solve for, because when your liquidity is not being borrowed, well, it's diluting the yield. And on the USDC side, it represents in 2025 about $2 billion. On USDT side, it's $6 billion. So imagine being able to yield some percent on that idle liquidity. With Aave V4, what's going to be possible is assign some of that liquidity to very low risk, highly liquid instruments like T-bills, which have instant liquidity or T+1 liquidity. And we're going to be able to configure that in a way that we can bring back some of that yield, and it really represents a moat, I believe, for Aave protocol. Another one is the umbrella, so the kind of risk trenching that we can also have natively as a spoke with V4 on the hub level. So think about users that are a bit more risk-on, that can stake in a specific spoke to ensure the whole hub that's connected to various different spoke. And lastly, I think one of the features I'm also excited about is the credit lines. So when you're bootstrapping a new hub for new use cases, new novel use cases, sometimes it's a bit difficult to attract the initial liquidity in terms of stablecoins. You need to get that flywheel going. And with a credit line, now you can tap into new sources of liquidity and really facilitate and accelerate this process. So these are just three examples, but really there's so much more to cover, and we're really, really excited.
Yeah, and with all these examples, like the goal really with V4 is to go after the hundreds of trillions of dollars that are just not on chain today. And so, Mooly, I'm curious from a security perspective how nervous that makes you, that DeFi protocols are getting, they go from millions to billions, to tens of billions, and now the next category is trillions. So how does that make you feel as a security-minded company that is working on protocols like Aave, which are at the forefront of that type of scaling?
Well, it was always scary, but I think it's now way more scary, because we understand that the attackers are always looking for the weakest link, and we actually don't know where it is. Like we thought about smart contract, now we're comfortable. Then there's other things like key management, but now we actually don't know, and we don't know. And basically, Web 2 and Web 3 interact in so many different ways. We just had a cute story from a client that he just said he got a Mika license and he announced it on LinkedIn, and then his server was attacked. So things are going in so many ways, and the more liquidity, the more you're going to get things. And you're going to get things that people are creative and they're just looking for more ways. And I think Aave is doing the right thing by investing in security, but we don't know. And it's always the case. And of course, AI making things better but worse. We are seeing clients like ours getting so many errors. The vast majority of them are benign, but one of them is a 4 years mistake, so you cannot ignore that. So we're getting so many bugs, and everybody's getting so many bugs, and most of them are benign, but we cannot ignore them. And of course, code injected by AI, and we see that even like reputable big companies are just getting hacked by coding, but nobody, we in Certora, we build one of the most complex software, but now we are advancing it with AI because there's no other way. So AI is probably going to make things even worse. And if you're thinking $1 trillion, I don't know.
Yeah, and well, even bugs that are benign, kind of early on in a protocol's life cycle, we've seen it countless times where something seemed benign early on, but then a few years later, the thing grows to however large, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Exactly,
That benign bug ends up,
exactly.
being the reason $50
Exactly.
to $100 million.
Yeah. So and if you want to fix them all, what do you do? But yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. And Fisher, coming to you on the Bitcoin stuff, one thing I'm curious about, there's been a lot of conversation about RWAs and things like this coming on chain, but as a company betting on Bitcoin, I guess, where do you see like Bitcoin fitting into this landscape as a whole? Like if the global economy comes on chain, what do you think Bitcoin's role is in all of that? And why are you guys kind of betting on it as an asset in kind of this day and age, I guess?
Yeah, sure. So to us, Bitcoin, it's actually, okay, let's take one step back. So to us, we believe collateralization is the foundation of finance. Yeah, collateralization is the secure for loan. Yeah, it is the pledge for option decks, and it is also the reserve for insurance companies. So collateralization is the foundation. Then Bitcoin, among all the digital assets that we know, it's actually the best collateral. It is mostly idle, not generating any yield. You can't actually use it everywhere as Ethereum or stable coin. Yeah, and also people have the mindset, oh, I have to hold on Bitcoin. So collateralizing Bitcoin is actually the best strategy for both Bitcoin holders and financial service providers. So we envision a future of on-chain finance where Bitcoin become like the universal collateral for many, many financial services. Yeah. So that's why we build this trustless Bitcoin collateral protocol and work with Aave to prove that Bitcoin is the best collateral.
Yeah, one thing I'm kind of excited about is like Bitcoin's #1 DeFi use case is already Aave, but like you've mentioned a couple times now, like a lot of the solutions for that are maybe not exactly what a Bitcoin maximalist would want, or they're not exactly what maybe some of the institutions might want who hold Bitcoin or something like this. And I guess like, can you help us understand a little bit more maybe how the Babylon model works and like how you guys are kind of how confident you feel that more Bitcoin maximalists and stuff are going to be willing to interact with something like Aave because of the solution you guys have built?
Yeah, sure. To answer your question here, I need to, again, take one step back and quickly review all the existing solutions, right? Okay. If you have some native Bitcoin and you want to borrow stablecoin, what can you do? First type of solution, you go to Binance or Tether. Then, yeah, you need to do KYC, and they don't give you a fuck if you are under $1 million. Second, it's you go to a web Bitcoin issuer such as WBTC or CBBTC. Yeah, then you basically give your native Bitcoin to them. They are like a gift card issuer. Issue your gift card for you to use. Then you are at risk of losing the title of your Bitcoin and get censorship, right? Then, yeah, you also have the pure off-chain solutions such as signing legal agreements, but that's another whole different world. So our solution is the only solution that allow Bitcoin holders to directly collateralize their native Bitcoin without going through any wrapping or bridging or off-chain stuff to cryptographically prove that this collateral is real and borrow from Aave. And then when liquidation happens, the liquidation is enforced by code. Yeah, permissionless. There's no counterparty in the middle making any discretionary decision and say, hey, maybe I don't want it to be liquidated. No, I don't want to give my Bitcoin to you. Right. So it is the only trustless solution to allow Bitcoin holder to interact with DeFi. Yeah.
That's helpful. Yeah, and I mean, Simon, coming back to you, on the risks, the risk side, I'm just thinking about like what the tens of trillions of dollars coming on chain looks like, and it's all sitting in Aave, and it's all these kind of different assets. I mean, even just the Babylon example is already like more exotic technically than you would see from some of the things that are already used in the Ethereum ecosystem. I guess, how do you think about scaling up the risk analysis framework within the Aave ecosystem to account for all of these new types of things we're seeing all the time, from RWAs to natively bridged Bitcoin, whatever, insert example here?
I think we need to have custom solutions for RWAs, for example. One of the big issue that we have been seeing is the NAV is self-reported by the asset issuers. So us as LlamaRisk, we had to come up with a methodology to make sure that if there's a misprint in the self-reported NAV, you're not liquidating the whole market, basically, right? So now we have a solution that's bounding the NAV to a methodology where we're kind of projecting the path for private credit, for T-bill instruments, and so on. So we feel like with the modularity of V4, we'll be able to tag along some of these custom solutions that each of these assets are requiring. There's no escape from the groundwork that we need to do on the due diligence side. So really talking with the protocol teams, doing even like we have an in-house legal counsel. So we're really doing the work upfront to make sure that we are only onboarding the safest, most high quality collateral onto Aave.
Yeah, and Mooly, one thing I'm not a dev. So the formal verification thing, I like appreciate it as an idea, but I wonder if you can help us understand kind of the importance of having a protocol that's built with formal verification in mind, especially one that's wanting to hold trillions of dollars one day or tens of trillions of dollars. Like, what's the importance of kind of embedding that philosophy early on and then continuing it through the development cycle?
So I think actually this is something we learn during working with Aave, because usually formalification has a rich history in computer science, but we think actually that formalification, and actually we learn even from V2, that it's somehow the ability to show that you don't have certain unknown bugs. So the difference between that and auditing, that we find bugs or other things, it's not just the bug that you find, it's the bug that you don't find. And I think if you look into our report, which should be available soon, you see the properties that we have been able to verify. So even if you don't like formal verification, you can check them with fuzzing or other. These are properties that are important to protocol to have. For example, think of solvency. So basically, I think the biggest benefit of formal verification is just writing out what are the declarative properties that the protocol has. And we have been working together with the Aave team in formulating it from the beginning. And I think that's also one thing that we see. Like many times when we work with protocols, they come to us like 4 weeks before the launch, and they say, okay, help us. And this is not the case. We have been working with this, and the code was changed many, many times. And the formalification by the team was integrated into the CI. So basically, the prover runs on every commit. So we actually have been allowing the team to move and to check these properties. So the idea is that you think about it like kind of exhaustive checking, which is beyond your code. And you have this specification, which is kind of a guardrail that tell you that, okay, there are certain properties that the protocol must have, no matter what liquidity it has. So it gives you an assurance of the protocol. That's the idea. I don't know if you guys are familiar, but one of the biggest value of formalification is a project called Cell4. Anybody knows about it? No. So Cell4 is actually a project for proving operating system. And actually, this is the only operating system that people have not been able to hack. And actually, people compare it to the SGX, which is amazing hardware, but they say, in fact, it's more secure than that. So we are actually taking a DeFi to a level which is almost like safety critical system, which I think is a nice thing for adoption and for the ability to prove properties. Of course, to having said it, I mean, Cell4 is a 12 years project. We didn't spend 12 years on this project yet, but it's an interesting thing to do.
And Emilio, I want to rewind again back to 2017. We're almost 10 years removed from that. I guess what does it feel like? What does Aave feel like today, and what does it feel like is in front of Aave growth-wise compared to what it felt like back then in the sort of Ethlin days?
I mean, back then felt like a dream. Like if I had to go back and think where we are today, it was like we were dreaming of reach this goal. And of course, like then in finance or in capital markets, but in DeFi specifically, it always feel like you are never there, right? So now that we are where we are is the baseline, of course, a projection for where we are in the future. But if I compare to where we were back then, when we reached like 1 million TVL on Ethlin in 2020, it felt like, I know, we were popping champagne in the office, but like, of course, like the goal that we always had since the beginning was to build products that felt like finance, but used DeFi under the hood without almost feeling it. That was also always our vision since we were in Ethlin back in the days. And I definitely think that we are going towards that direction with Aave v4, with new ways of unlocking capital, like the Babylon. Like the Babylon one for me is very interesting because Bitcoin to Ethereum is like RWA, right? It's like any other asset. Like it's an asset is completely exogenous to the network, right? So there is some learning in there. If we can make this work permissionlessly across networks with completely different technologies, maybe in the future we can also minimize the trust so that we can bring any asset on chain using similar methods. I think there is going to be a lot of evolution, especially in this sense, especially towards ZK technologies. So being able to prove on chain that something actually happened, for me, is a huge driver that we can leverage in the future to actually create, to expand the way that Aave works, so that we don't necessarily take something tokenized with all the complexities that brings, and then try to fit that block into DeFi somehow, but actually use the actual thing in real life, and then being able to borrow money against it in a trust minimized way. And this theoretically, like our goal is to bring Aave to the next billion users and to the next trillion of assets. And I think we are laying down the foundationals to actually achieve that goal.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we're out of time. So if you don't mind giving my panelists a round of applause here. Thanks, guys. All right. So with that, that's our final talk for the day, I believe. So